Looks like we're good to go. Mike, thank you so much for letting us come out here this weekend and check out your house. I've never been out to your house before. We've known each other since, oh my gosh, 6 years?
At least, yeah.
Something like that. We met because you were on a quest. SJR 14. SJR 14 was trying to be rammed down our throats. What was that thing about? That was property taxes.
Yeah, it was a property tax increase, but it was very well camouflaged, and people really didn't. The average person probably wouldn't understand what was taking place there. My first introduction to SJR 14 was I went down to the state legislators. They were in session. I was there to monitor some progress on another tax issue. And as I walked in, a lobbyist came up to me and said, "You're going to support this proposed bill?" And I said, "Well, first of all, I was taken aback. I hadn't had a chance to read it or review it. I didn't even know what it was. When somebody walks up and says, 'You're going to do this,' my initial reaction is, I don't know if I'm going to do it or not.
Right.
I mean, I'll look at it, and maybe it's worthwhile, and maybe it does deserve my support. But who knows? I'm not going to just take somebody's word for it. So
Right.
once I heard what it was taking place, I talked to people on my staff. My gut reaction wasn't a good idea, but I had my staff do some samples in certain neighborhoods of the county, and if you did that survey and looked at it, it had the capability of, depending on where you were in the county, of raising your property taxes by 75% up to 200% tax increase. So I didn't think that was a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I didn't think that was a good idea is as a real estate broker, we just come out of this horrible recession here in the county and the state, and it's been said by people economists and so forth that the county lost about 60% of the value of equity that people had in their properties.
Right.
And it was devastating to the real estate community, to the lending community, to the buyers, to the sellers. And it was almost the same type of a thing. When you raise taxes that high, people have to qualify to pay principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. That's the
Right.
formula that you use to qualify for a loan. And the way they were trying to sell this is, it's going to raise the property tax, but it won't affect you because if you're already here, it'll go up for the buyer. Fair enough. That's the way it would be. It would be kind of a due on sale. It would start then, and but then you have to look at the folks buying the house. If the property taxes were to go up that high, they might not qualify for it. It would reduce the buying pool, the pool of buyers for that house. Mm-hmm. So if you're a seller, your taxes wouldn't go up as long as you stayed in the property. But when you try and sell it, you may not be able to get the dollar amount you want for the house because the people coming in can't qualify for that. The same thing happens when interest rates move up. The buying power is diminished.
Yeah.
When taxes go up, the buying power is diminished. As the county assessor, we've had courses, we go to seminars, there's classes, that part of the training is that companies, and one of the quizzes and one of the examples in the textbook is, if the tax rate is this versus this, where would be the best place for a company to build their warehouse or their factory? And many companies, certainly review the taxes before they build. It happens right here in northern Nevada. It's happened here numerous times. If you look down in Carson City, there was a Walmart in town, and Douglas County offered a little less, so Walmart closed their store and moved across the county line. Mm-hmm. They just moved. And people think, well, a big giant warehouse, a box store like this Walmart, moved across county lines for significant tax savings. They eventually did come back to Carson City. I think they have 2 stores there now. But there was a point in time where companies pit counties against each other to come up with favorable taxes. I mean, a good example is Tesla out here. Story County's got over 5 million square foot that they really can't value just yet. I think I don't know when exactly that sunsets, if ever, but there's significant tax savings to lure companies out. So taxes are a big part of making a decision. And if you're already own the property and the taxes are changed, that the tax rate is changed, you're stuck with holding a property that would maybe be devalued because of the increased property taxes. So I didn't think it was a good idea at all. And so I wasn't running that year. I was in the office for about 2 years. About 2 years after that session, somebody came to talk to my chief deputy and said that they found a highly qualified individual to run against me because I didn't support that tax. So that's when I said, this must be a big deal. I mean, somebody's really, I mean, I'd forgotten about it, just to be honest with you. And then that was going to be a campaign of the other side of they wanted that through, and I didn't want that through. And when I didn't want that through, I think that's when my real problems started with the county. As far as I've always been an outsider there. I'm probably one of the first assessors since back to 1861 that didn't come from that community. I'm an outsider, just as simple as that, and that part was resented very much, especially when I didn't want to play ball with them. There were situations where people would come to me and say I wasn't a team player because I wasn't supporting the county line, what they wanted to do, and I told them, well, I was a team player. I just wasn't on their team. I mean, I'm elected by the folks here, and I know what it's like to be on the receiving end of tax increases that were unwarranted.
That's how you got into this game in the first place.
That's the beginning. That's the genesis of me running for office. Is I built my dream homes, saved my whole life, 40, 50 years of saving, and find a piece of land and design a house and build a house and move in, and the economy's good and things are rattling along, and you pay your taxes and you just go down the road. You don't think twice about it. But when the economy tanked here, right about the time I built my house, and it was my money. It wasn't a bank loan. It was my money. And, there's a point in time when you can't afford to stay, and you can't afford to leave. You just, it's your money. A lot of people were able to, reorganize their finances, or people just gave their properties back to the bank. But I couldn't do that. So one of the ways, one of the things that got my attention as a real estate broker, I see my property devalued by 10, 15, 20, 30% on the open market, but yet my taxes didn't go down. So after a couple of years of that, I went in and I talked to somebody at the assessor's office. And first of all, I was treated extremely rudely when I was there. I mean, just imagine your worst situation at the post office or the DMV or the Social Security office or whatever government entity you go to, and they, you're a bother, you're a headache, you're a pain. Well, get out of here. We're right, you're wrong, leave. Right. And so as a real estate broker, I put together the comps for my neighborhood, and I found out that I could prove to the County Board of Equalization that the assessor was incorrect with their values. And so I did that, and I won at the County Board of Equalization. There's 58 homes in my subdivision. I shared that information with my neighbors. They also went in, and at least three of them went in, and they asked for a reduction in value, and all three of them did not get it. I did. They used the same comps, the same arguments. I gave them that information. In fact, if you go back and look, and it's all on record, everything I'm going to say, the neighbor, one of my neighbors, went just before me at the hearing, and I'm sitting in the audience, and I watch him lose, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I don't stand a chance. But I went up and I was able to argue my point a little bit better. I mean, most people are not comfortable public speaking in a courtroom situation or a hearing kind of a situation, but I was able to convince the board members that I was correct, and so I won. I won, and I got a reduction. My neighbors didn't. Same neighborhood, same property, same issue. I win. 3 of those folks didn't prevail in their court.
So you're the only one.
I'm the only one that won. But my neighbors, 2 of them, said, well, this isn't right. We had the same argument.
Right.
We lost, he won. So they filed an appeal with the state of Nevada. They took it to the next level.
Good.
They went to the state. And then again, this is all on record. Everything I'm telling you it could be researched. People can find this out. They went to the state Board of Equalization, and they again lost. Okay, they not only lost, but the state contacted the county Board of Equalization and said, these folks didn't win, and who is this Clark guy? How come he won? And they brought me back. I think it was in September, so I won in February, the hearing, and then in September I had to go back in and argue the same thing. They were trying to equalize the neighborhood by taking my victory away. That's what the state was trying to do. So that was my first taste of what it's really like to go up against City Hall. And so I had to go back in and argue my case 2 times in 1 year, and I won again with that year. The next year, and so I think I'm home free. I'm going to be left alone. The next year, my property values are up again. This is again in a down market. I argued with them that time, and then the third year, the third time I went in, and we argued back and forth, and the county, the assessor stipulated that I was correct. I had to file for the hearing, and I had to make the request for hearing. And when just before the hearing, the assessor decided to back off. But this is 3 years in a row in the down times, the down economic market.
What year? So it's like what, 08?
That would have been, I ran for office in 14. So this would have been like 2011, 12, 13, in those years. That's when the economy was really suffering here. And so I was so irritated. The last day of filing, I decided I was going to run for the office. It costs $100 to file, and I had no signs. I didn't know what I was doing. I'd never want to be in office before. I'd never had political aspirations whatsoever. But I thought, for $100, I'm going to go around and tell that story that I just told you to whoever will listen to me.
Right.
Because I felt, if they were doing it to me, a real estate broker, 40 years in the business, or not appraising, but valuing property for putting them on the market, residential property, mortgage broker. I know the values. I see appraisals. I know what's taking place. If they're doing that to somebody who's kind of in the business, what are they doing to the public?
Right.
So my campaign was based on a question: are you being treated fairly? I mean, I sent out postcards. I asked people, are you being treated fairly? And most folks said, no, we're not. And so I won that election. And that was how I entered into the assessor's office, kind of from the back door, the side door, certainly not coming from within the organization. And so that was a situation that had never happened before. That was probably their worst nightmare, is to have an outsider coming in, and really didn't come from that field. So over the course of time, I I took the general. We have as an elected, you don't really have to have these certificates, but I wanted them, so I took the courses that were offered to the state of Nevada and other assessing groups, and took the general test and passed that. Took the real property test and passed that. Took the personal property test and passed that. So I've got those certificates. And
who puts those things together? Is that like government entities that do this, or
it's a state. The Nevada Department of Taxation has those tests, and you pass those. The state offers the test. The state offers the test several times a year to anybody who's working in the assessor's offices throughout the state. There's 17 counties in the state of Nevada, and all of those counties have their own assessor, and their staff could be, probably the largest is Clark County. We're number 2 in the state, down to some of the small rural counties that might only have a handful of employees that work at the assessor's office.
So what kind of stuff do they put in this? I mean, is it how to figure out what the values are, or what the standard procedures are, or how?
A little bit of both. It's Nevada law about assessing.
Okay.
What's in the statutes. It's about appraisal, standardized appraisal practices, methodologies that are used throughout the United States, and many parts of the world use the same type of valuation, figuring square footages, the typical house, the finishes on the house, the quality of the house, everything from the quality of the roof to the quality of the construction to the type of construction. Is it stick built? Is it masonry? Is it a steel building? So there's every type of construction is looked at. That's just part of the equation. The other part is the values of the land itself, and how to figure out comps. And in a neighborhood you might have a flat lot that's right on the street with power to it, or in a rural area you might have something on the side of a hill that's with or without a view. How difficult it is to prepare a building pad. Lots of factors come into play, and valuing property. And in addition to that, you've got personal property. I mean, the county assessor's office values everything from flat screen TVs to pizza ovens to tanning booths to silverware to tables to art hanging on the wall. And then there's certain art that gets that is exempt, and if it's
like what's exempt?
Well, it would be maybe something in a museum, or maybe something very fancy in a big casino lobby that had a lot of value, but that's open for the public to look at, or it's in a museum, and there's cutouts for that type of thing. So.
Do you know if anyone knows, you're the assessor. NFTs, have you heard of NFTs?
NFTs.
Non-fungible token.
Oh,
it's
right,
a blockchain thing.
Right.
And there's this guy, Beeple. You heard of Beeple? He did over $100 million in NFT sales last year.
Yeah.
It's just digital art, but people are spending stupid money on it.
Sure.
But it's digital. Do you tax it? Say I buy a $50 million Beeple thing. Do I get a county tax bill? Does it even exist in the county? I just wonder. I mean, I doubt you've assessed any taxes on any NFTs yet, but I wonder where that's going.
That's up to the state legislators, and if there's a way to monetize it, I'm sure they'll figure it out.
Yeah. Where can we spend this money? Let's figure out what we can do.
Yeah.
So you get in there. How were you received by the staff? They had to have one way of doing things that they were used to, and then you come in, this maverick who's gonna give everyone a break on their property taxes because the county's been finding every way they can to jack them up.
Well,
What do you do?
I never went in there with the idea that we're going to abolish property taxes. I just wanted.
That sounds like a good idea. I think we should do that. Okay.
So what I wanted is everybody to be treated fairly. That's
Okay.
what I really wanted, and I wanted people to go into a county office, a government office, and just be treated like a nice kind of
Respected human.
respected, and at the end of the day, I've been a taxpayer a lot longer than I've been an assessor, and I'll be a taxpayer a lot longer than I'll be an assessor, and you just want to be treated properly. That's all. You don't want to be talked down to. So that was a goal of mine, to make sure that people were treated with respect, and I think I know that's happened. I've talked to taxpayers in a certain part of the county, and they are very complimentary of the way they're treated in the office, and we want to look at anybody who comes to us with an issue. We want to address it. We're not infallible. I mean, if we made a mistake, let's correct it. We've got a situation that took place up at Incline Village 2 assessors ago under a fellow by the name of McGowan. McGowan had, and this is it's told to me, and I've read about it in newspaper accounts and so forth, that about 18 people up at Incline Village were in the same boat I was. They thought their properties were being overvalued. They went to the assessor. The assessor, rather than figuring out a way to work within the law and see if there was a compromise to be made, said, well, in essence, we're right and you're wrong, and take it or leave it. That's it. And so the assessor had the authority to bring the DA involved, and the folks up at Incline were not happy, and they hired an attorney, and it started a legal battle that went on from anywhere from 14 to 16 years, depending on who you talk to. Ultimately cost the county, I'm just going to throw, there'll be somebody fact check me and find out I'm off by a few dollars, but it was somewhere in the last, there's been 2 settlements equaling about $100 million.
Whoa.
And about half of that was overcharged taxes, and the other half of that is penalties and interest, and probably attorney's fees. It had something to do with that. I didn't see the exact.
14 to 16 years of attorney's fees, a lot of attorney's fees.
Yeah, so it added up, and we just recently and within the last couple of years finally got that settled. I tried for 6 years to try and get that settled, and I couldn't get any traction with the county commissioners they didn't want to settle that. The DA's office didn't want to settle that. I mean, I've been told that if we would have settled that 6 years ago, we would have saved probably about $12 million in interest. So that would have been a significant savings. But it was one of the largest settlements in the county's history, and in the county, some members of the county commission wanted to keep it rolling. If certain folks would have had their way, we'd probably still be in court.
Are any of those people still in government now?
Yes.
Oh, who?
Yeah. Well, so Von Hartung was one. He it's funny. One of the largest settlements in the county's history. And on the day of the vote, he took a vacation day. He didn't show up. So I thought that was outrageous. And during that time, it was during the COVID shutdown, I believe. And you could zoom in from anywhere. You could have been in Africa or Tahiti or gosh knows where, and got in on the Zoom and voted on this. But he decided to take a vacation day. I thought that was. That was odd, to say the least. At the time, right up until the vote of the settlement, then Chairman Commissioner Lucy was wanting to fight it. He talked about going to Washington, D.C. and hiring a law firm and taking it away from the DA's office and hiring an outside law firm to continue the fight. Jeannie Herman's always tried to get this settled. You got to salute her for that. Marcia Burkbigler decided it was time to get this settled, so she was instrumental in it. We got a new county manager about that time, Eric Brown, and he, to his credit, outside eyes and ears coming in with a fresh look at it, and he could see as a former businessman that this was something that should be settled. Anybody who's in business would have looked at this and settled it a long time ago. It wasn't just opinion of I think I'm right and you think you're right. It was way beyond that. The Nevada Supreme Court had consistently ruled against the county. The Nevada Supreme Court. I mean, you can have an opinion, I can have an opinion, but when the Nevada Supreme Court has an opinion, it's a whole different matter when the Supreme Court's opinion.
Right.
And if you're on the wrong side of that, and the county was on numerous occasions, it was just a ridiculous thing to do to keep this running, keep the meter running. The county, I think, was hoping to win through attrition. I think they were hoping to outlast the folks who were battling them from Incline Village. They were the people at Incline Village, based on, not my opinion, but the Nevada Supreme Court's opinion, were correct in their allegation that they were being overvalued. It's as simple as that. Settle it, move on. No, but the county, when there's something about people when they get elected, they forget where they came from.
Yeah.
They don't realize that, this is real money. If it was their own money, they would have settled it, but they're working with the taxpayers' money. So let's keep this thing rolling. And it just the meter kept running. I don't know the exact number, but I've heard different speculation between $5,000 and $7,000 each and every day on the interest. Again, somebody will fact check me and say he's wrong, but it was a big number. It was a big number. And it wasn't stopping. It was not going to stop. These people at Incline were not going to back off, and the county didn't want to back off. So it was a real standoff. And at the end of the day, the county finally settled this thing. And now some of the folks who were 100% against this, who didn't want to settle it, are now walking around and crowing like it was, if it wasn't for them, this wouldn't have happened.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So they're trying to take credit for something that they fought for 7 years. But I mean, if you look at this, when it went on for this time, there were elected officials in the county commissioners that aren't even on the commission. I mean,
what do you mean?
Those folks have retired, moved on. I mean, when this started 14 years ago, a lot of those folks are no longer on the. So this went through the initial group of county commissioners, and then it was inherited by this group. The smart move for this group would have said, "Hey, this started before us. After looking at this and realizing that the county hadn't wanted to at a state level, that maybe we should do the right thing and get out of this flypaper." But they didn't want to do that. They just kept digging in their heels. I mean, it would have been perfect for them to say, this happened before us, we're sorry it happened, we don't see any way out of this other than settling with these folks, and let's get it settled. Let's be done with it, move on. They did not take that approach initially. I was there for over 6 years, almost 7 years, of the county digging their heels in and fighting this. And I just thought it was just a waste of taxpayers' dollars and just a real lack of leadership on the part of who are the elected officials here.
So this whole thing had started before you even took office as the assessor.
Oh, yeah.
So it was under the guy who had overvalued your property, that it had started under him or under the one
someone
before?
before him. So
Wow.
this started off with Bob McGowan.
Okay.
Okay,
Bob McGowan.
Bob McGowan was the assessor when this first started.
Right.
Then Josh Wilson, when he retired, Josh Wilson ran for office and became, I think he was appointed first and then ran for office. So Josh Wilson had a couple of terms there, a term and a half. And then it was a term and a half of me before it got settled.
So your predecessors, were these longtime government folks, or were they new to the game too? One was appointed, so he probably was.
I don't know. I did not know Bob McGowan. So I know he was the assessor for at least 8 years, maybe longer. Josh Wilson, when you ask about, he'd worked for the county since he was 16, I think.
Oh.
He worked as first at the library, and then later on he got into the assessor's office, and he worked in the assessor's office and worked his way up to the assessor's office. And when McGowan retired, or I'm not sure exactly how the transition took place, if Wilson got appointed initially, but he did definitely run for office and win before me. So he had a number of years with the county and certainly a number of years with the assessor's office. To Josh's credit, when I first got elected, Nevada is unique. We're the only state that values property the way that we do here.
Okay.
Okay, we've got a bifurcated system where we have the land is based on market value, and the structure is based on original cost new less depreciation.
Okay.
So we've got two components on a property that's been improved. Otherwise, it's just raw land, and it's based on what the market is, and then with the depreciation of an improvement. So there's a different way, a different formula, a different methodology to value property. So there's only 17 counties in the state. We're the only state that does business the way that we do business. And so it's a very, very small group of folks who really have a good working knowledge of what we do. Mm-hmm. I would say if you took all the employees of Clark County, Washoe County, and all the other counties, there might be less than 1,000 people in the whole state that really have a good understanding of what's taking place. So coming from outside, I didn't know what I didn't know. Mm-hmm. And so being elected is one thing, and doing and having the knowledge is something else. And so I hired Josh Wilson to be my chief deputy, and we had a good working relationship. He needed a few more years before he could retire, and I needed somebody that could show me the ropes, and Josh was very gracious and honest, and I thought he did a very good job for me. And after I got elected, I realized that I wasn't so upset with the assessor as I was with the state laws. And so it was part of that was going on was state laws that I was not happy with, and for some reason our taxes weren't going down the way they should have during that economic time. So and if you look at it, the analysis is the county meaning the citizens of the county, lost about 60% of their value. But if you look at the assessed values during that time, the assessed values went down about 32%, or excuse me, the other way, 28%. So if I lose 60% of my value, but you only lose 30% of your value, and that's kind of the way that played out during that time. So the county didn't get they got hit, but they didn't get hit as hard as the citizens, in my opinion.
So now on the flip side of this, I mean, I don't understand how any of this works, but like I get my annual bill or report from you that ends up going to my escrow account to my mortgage.
Sure.
I'm happy that the number that's on there is a lot lower than the number that I get from all the realtors that send me offers every day on how much we can sell your house for.
Sure.
So but now that number, fortunately, has gone up, percentage-wise, is the assessed value from your office going up at the same ratio also? Or how's it working right now?
Well, again, as I explained, that it's based on land value and cost new less depreciation. So we're not a market value state.
Okay.
So that's one thing. But we are in respect to land. So the land has gone up tremendously in some neighborhoods.
Fortunately, I live on a postage stamp, so that's good.
But lots have gone up, and and there's a 3% cap in place that kind of helps people out, and the depreciation. But there's always a controversy over a market value versus the way we do it. I'm sooner or later, I'm sure there's be modifications to the tax codes and the tax laws, and that's for Carson City and the folks at the elected state officials to decide that. Right now, we've got laws on the books that our office follows.
And SGR 14 is dead, right? Or did it come back in some other form?
Well, the concept, I'm sure, is alive and well. And I don't know I can't predict what's going to happen in the next legislative session, but there's always a move by certain individuals to get rid of the tax cap or turn it into a market state, or that's, again, we'll just sooner or later we'll know what the legislators want to try and do.
All right. So do you keep an eye on the legislature? I mean, you found SGR 14, or they told you about it because they didn't know who you were just yet. Maybe that was the case. But moving forward, do you foresee them keeping quiet about all that? You're going to have to dig through the legislature to see what's popping up in their dockets.
It's well, I won't be the assessor when that happens.
Right.
So it'll be who the assessor is, and do they want to share with the public what's taking place? Do the public want to know? Does the public care? It's and what do they? If we can look at historically and predict the future, I predict the state legislators will want higher taxes. Okay.
Right.
Just based on history.
It's easier for them to pay back campaign promises to their donors when they've got lots of money to hand out to big companies.
They always need more money.
They do. And you're good at pissing them off.
So, as I said, I've never really been an insider to this. And, I've got documentation from the former head of HR for the county. John Listinski's got a sworn statement, a notarized statement about how they started through Manager Slaughter, how they wanted to investigate me for no good reason. And the head of HR said, well, we have to have some type of a reason to go out to investigate someone. So he makes that statement. Marcia Burke-Bigler, the former county commissioner, again, a sworn statement from her saying that the county went out of their way to criticize me and come after me and belittle me. We've got Jeannie Herman with the same type of a statement. So those three folks have made those statements to me and to my attorney and to the press, and nobody seems to want to cover that. But it hasn't been a very welcoming work environment. I'll just say that with the county. belittling and criticizing and trying to browbeat me. This restraining order that they got is, just another example of them trying to embarrass or humiliate me. And quite frankly, I'm not embarrassed or humiliated about what I've done. They should be embarrassed and humiliated about what they've done. On one hand, in their restraining order, they make statements that in the courtroom, when they're, and I've got the court transcripts right here from that case. On one day, they swear under penalty of perjury this is taking place. And then in a courtroom situation, they swear in a courtroom, they're under oath, that something else entirely, 180 degrees, took place. So
You're talking about the picture.
I'm talking about, this
That-
picture.
That was a dirty trick.
Yeah.
The picture.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell me about the picture for those who are listening to this?
This was the main argument that that Assistant Manager Thomas put on her complaint, and the Deputy District Attorney swore that this picture that was in the packet. Well, let's back up a little bit. There was a packet of information that made its way to my hands. I read it. I found it of interest. I copied it. I mailed it out to 162 other county employees, elected officials, people, influencers in the county, people that I thought should see this stuff because I found it interesting and I thought others should see it. In one of the pages, one of the packets, one of the pages in the packet was a photograph that had been used in a federal sexual harassment case in the city of Reno. Assistant County Manager Thomas was sitting by a pool. Her mother took the picture. She tells on the transcripts of the hearing that she'd shared it with other employees at the city of Reno, and it had been out there. People had seen it. It had been in the court case. It was public record. It was an exhibit.
I saw it had a yellow
Had an
exhibit sticker.
Had an exhibit sticker. So she and the county decide they're going to try and use that as a harassment situation, and swore under penalty of perjury on the temporary restraining order that she'd never seen this before, didn't know what it was. How did Clark get this? Where did it come from?
Right.
He's harassing me. The DA, rather than she must, I think most folks in the legal profession, if they saw a big yellow stamp on something that said exhibit, might question, what was it an exhibit for?
I mean,
Was
given
it an
benefit of
exhibit?
the doubt, do you think she could have confused it as this is an exhibit in this case?
No.
It doesn't.
No, there was
Was there a date on it?
There was no way that it could be
Yeah.
construed as that. Is it an exhibit? And if you're just maybe a lay person, you're not in the legal profession, you might overlook it. But these are judges, these are attorneys, these are the DA. This is somebody who knew it had been in a courtroom case, and said that never. In her words, don't know where it came from, never seen it before. How did he get a hold of this? That type of.
So this paints the picture that you're some perv with a long lens who's standing outside the pool, getting shots of her in a bikini.
That was kind of the.
That's kind of
that
how it
a
was construed
flavor.
on the news and
That's-
everywhere else. So
that's-
this
yeah.
creepy guy taking pictures of girls in their bikini.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, okay, great.
So
So now you're toxic.
In reality, her mother had taken the picture.
Mm-hmm.
In reality, she knew it had been in a court case. In reality, these are her words in the court transcript. In reality, she admits that she'd handed it out to her coworkers when she worked at the city of Reno.
And that was a sexual harassment case.
This case, my case was not sexual harassment.
I mean, the one.
Oh,
that,
the one in Reno. Yes. Yeah, and so in Reno, it was a federal sexual harassment case that this picture was used in.
And what was her role in that case?
She had been accused of having an affair with the city manager, and the other ladies in the office had accused her in this case of being involved with the city manager, and it was a big case, and you know I've looked at the transcripts from that as well, and you know it's a long involved case, but I want to focus on what's happening with me, so
right.
rather than to go back at that.
Okay.
But that being said, it was a sexual harassment case that had started in Reno, and how that tied in here to Washoe County is it was a nasty case in Reno, and at the time, I don't know if she was getting ready to be terminated there or resign or leave, but somehow or another, right at the tail end of that case, she got hired by Washoe County.
How handy.
Yeah, so that was again through Burke Bigler's testimony, through John Listinsky's testimony, through Jeannie Herman's testimony. They all said that she was not hired the way somebody would normally be hired for the county manager's job.
She got walked in.
She got walked in. She cut the line, for lack of a better way. She Slaughter brings her to work, and she's there.
This is a cush gig.
Yeah, this is a cush gig. I've heard other people testify that she's making her package is a couple $100,000 a year.
We can look it up. Transparent Nevada.
Yeah. So look it up and see what the number is exactly. It doesn't matter to me, but it's a cush job. But the irony of this thing is, Slaughter brings her in without going through proper channels. They didn't do a nationwide search. They didn't do what they normally do when they're bringing in an assistant county manager. Mm-hmm. She's there for less than a year, and she gets an opportunity to be made county manager because Slaughter retires. He brings her in and then retires. It's just, I don't believe in coincidences. I don't know exactly how this happens, but he brings her in, and then he retires, and then she's almost a shoo-in for this job.
Right.
So I think that the county manager is probably the most powerful person in the county that's not elected.
Okay.
Okay, so I mean.
So what's in her purview? What can she do?
She works with the county commissioners. She works with the department heads. When the county manager leaves the county for an extended period of time, the assistant county manager is appointed for an interim period to handle issues. The county manager works with the sheriff. The county manager works with all the department heads. If there's a nasty car wreck, or there's a shooting, or there's a natural disaster, the county manager is involved in that. So my point is, here's a gal that didn't have the best, and this is not my words, this is stuff that's in the transcripts, that didn't do that good of a job at the city of Reno, other than allegedly having an affair with the county, with the city manager. Comes over, gets a job with the county, and the next thing you know, she's in line to become the county manager. And it was a vote between the county commissioners, and it went right down to the wire, and it was a 3-2 vote for someone else. And she didn't get the job, and I guess that really upset Von Hartung, and it really upset Bob Lucy. about this when Eric Brown first.
They really wanted her for that job.
They wanted her for that job. Yeah, they really wanted her for that job.
But she had no track record that really would put her as...
Correct. So, everyone speculates why that was happening, but Jeannie Herman and Marcia Burke-Bigler both have got statements that it was more than just a working business relationship between the Chairman Lucy and this lady. And again, that's their words. It's written. It's written down. I'm just relaying what I've read, and others had the opportunity to see that. Back to when I got this package delivered, I read it. I thought it was important. I sent it out. I've never done anything anonymously in my life. This time I did. I wish I wouldn't have. I did it anonymously because with the county, I'm a polarizing person there. I'm a lightning rod. Anytime sometimes with these people, if I say it's day, they'll disagree just because I said it. So my thought was, I want people just to read this and take a look and see, ask some questions if you find it as interesting as I did. And it absolutely, totally backfired. They spent more time on who sent this than what's in it. The press doesn't care what's in it. The elected officials who did get it, the business leaders who did get it, nobody's interested in what's in the package.
Do they just think that it's all corrupt and messed up anyway, so why look at it? It's just the way it is?
They were able to change the narrative on this to, we don't care what's in the package. Who the heck is sending this stuff out? That's exactly what took place.
Sounds a lot like the Russiagate Trump stuff.
Yeah. I mean, they just wanted to find out who sent it out.
Right.
So, in retrospect, I would have put my name on it. I should have.
But you didn't.
But I didn't, so that's how they've come after me.
And the part you really screwed up on was the return address.
Yeah, that was kind of...
It was a joke.
I shouldn't have done it. I'll just put it that way. But again, it goes on with with trying to do this anonymously, so people saw what was really in the package. But with this restraining order, it wasn't that I couldn't send the package out anymore. It was a restraining order was just done to humiliate me in the press. I mean, the package is still available. If anybody wants to take the time and read it, they'll see why I found it of interest. There's it starts off with this our chairman and the former chairman, I guess now, of the county commission, changed his name.
Yeah.
He changed his name. Later on, he runs for office. And when you change your name, you kind of throw people off the trail. There's been some other court cases that involved him under his other name, his birth name, and I found those interesting. I mean, it says in these court papers, again, it's not me saying, it's the court papers that are saying that investors in this real estate company weren't getting paid dividends or weren't getting paid their proper share. I mean, that was in the court. It wasn't me saying that. I find that interesting. I find somebody who's in a situation where the investors who happen to be family members weren't getting paid. If they're doing that to each other in their own family, what chance does the public have with somebody like that? That's just my thought.
Right.
So name change, and then if you know his real name, you can look this up. But if you don't know his real name, you can't look it up. And it's just that and some information about what was taking place in the city of Reno, and just some information. It was interesting reading, I thought.
They kind of
If somebody's in the public eye and somebody's an elected official, and you find out some things that are interesting, people should have the right to understand and know that. Fast forward, after this package goes out, then there's a discussion in the county commission meeting about making public records harder to get. I mean, think about that. Why have public records if the public can't see the public records?
Right. That seems like a red flag.
So
if we're supposed to have transparency in government, and technically we do in a lot of ways, but they make it really hard for you to get at it as it is.
Sure.
Anyone who's gone on the DMV's website or any government website knows that they're impossible to navigate. They crash all the time. And then sometimes you just have to abandon that and go down in person and deal with the super pleasant people that want you out of their hair when you get there.
Sure.
So they want to make it harder than it already is. That's a sign.
So, not too long ago, and again, this is public record. You can go on the watch the county commissioners on YouTube or however you can get that streaming.
Mm-hmm.
And they were having a discussion about raising the fees to get public records. Costs more to get public records. And
what's the excuse for that?
Well, yeah.
Is the technology getting more expensive now? Is it getting harder for us to disseminate information in 2022?
I think it should be easier, but that's just my opinion.
I think it should be free.
And I think it should be free, and here's why. The taxpayers have paid for that.
Right.
Public record storage, transcription, through their tax dollars.
Right.
I mean, in the assessor's office, we've got ledgers going back to where the assessed values on properties were written in pen and ink, in big leather-bound ledgers. The county has paid employees to record public records. The clerk's office does it. The county recorder's office does it. The assessor's office does it. At the courts, they record everything. There's a reason for public records. Public records are there because nobody can remember everything. Something happens and you want to, why did that happen? And let's go look it up. And why was that decision made? And what really took place? Newspapers, they've got archives, Chicago, New York, LA, probably here, the big newspapers. They can go back and look at what was on the front page in 1932. So there's a reason people want to research. People want to have a point of reference. People want to know why something is done. If the public can't look at public records, why have them?
Right.
And I'll take it a step further. If a public official doesn't want you to look at public records, I wouldn't trust that person.
Right, I wouldn't either.
What are they hiding? That's my first go-to. People are skeptical of government already. That's just a fact.
Which is
more
smart.
so in our western states. We don't trust government. People don't trust the government. And then we get elected officials who act shady, and it just fuels the fire. Mm-hmm. Public records should be public records. Let everybody look at it, make your own decision. Don't believe what I say. Don't believe what the other elected officials say. Doesn't matter. Read it with your own eyes.
But who has the time?
Well,
people don't even read books anymore.
Well, I understand that, but if there's something brought to your attention, and if I find a public record and I think it's worth looking at, and I pass it out, somebody should maybe read that. And not just me, but public records. I mean, there are other. It isn't just what's happening in the county. It's happening in the city. It's happening at the city of Sparks. It's happening in the city of Reno. It's happening at the school board. It's happening in the tourism board. It's happening at the water district. I mean, public record. People need to see what's taking place. To your point, online, sometimes I watch these county commission meetings or the city council meetings, and there'll be 37 people watching.
Well, and they're
37
boring for the most part. There's not much in there you like.
The 37 people watching it out of 400,000 people in the county. Well, It could be boring.
Who has the time to watch it, I guess is my point, especially when there's a whole sea of beautiful stuff to watch on Netflix.
Well, there's things coming. Well, if that's the case and nobody wants to pay attention, that's when mischief happens.
Right,
Okay?
right.
That's when mischief happens.
I think mischief is happening, and that's part of the problem.
That's when somebody gets a special job for their wife that nobody else really got a chance to bid on. I mean, that's happened here.
Yeah.
We need to look at that. We need to find out if your life is any better because this person's been in office for the last 7 or 8 years.
Right.
Has anything gotten better? That's what the taxpayers, the voters, the constituents, the citizens should ask is my life any better because this person's been there? Or is their life any better because they're there? And when I say their life any better, how are things better for them? Are they doing things for their campaign contributors? Contracts getting awarded? I mean, if you don't give anybody any money and they don't do anything for you, it's kind of okay. But if somebody else is giving a $10,000 campaign contribution and a month or two later they're getting awarded a contract, well, people should want to know that. There should be somebody, a watchdog out there. And to your point, people have time to do this or that. The next thing, the media around here, for the most part, they don't have the time, energy, or the money, or the will to investigate a lot of this stuff. I mean, some of this stuff would have been front page news in any other city. Stuff that happens here is like, oh, well, nobody cares.
I think that's an unfortunate part of the press in general, is that the motivation, kind of like public office. A lot of people want to have their place in the spotlight. They want to have the attention. They want to feel important. They want to be out there and be all of that. But they're not willing to really look at the reasons for doing it and be the person that they need to be to really hold that position in honor. I guess the way I put it is, like, a lot of journalists have become stenographers. Like, I want to be on camera. I want to be seen. I want to be seen as important. I want people to recognize me in the grocery store and here and there. But do I really want to be a journalist? Do I really want to dig down and find out what the truth is of a story? Or do I just want to report the news, whatever comes out and is the news? And it's very easy to get the news when it comes across on the news wires, and they give you all of these stories. Oh, this happened in Reno today. This happened here. Oh, cool, I can write this up. That'll do 2 minutes for a story. Okay, great. I get up and I do my 2-minute story, and everyone recognizes me at the grocery store, and I'm happy, and all that's great. But I didn't dig. I didn't piss anyone off. If I dig around in the government and I find stories like this, oh, this contract got awarded, no bid contract, to this donor, to this person at the county or whatever. If I go digging around and I find some things that maybe the public should know about, and as journalists, they should be informing the public of these things, well, then I'm going to piss off the people at the county and at the state and at the city who give me these stories that I can just report in 2 minutes flat, and people recognize me in the grocery store. My life is easy as a journalist, not mine. A journalist's life is easy if they just go with the flow. Government can make their life easy if they're a stenographer. But as soon as they start fighting against that, then they get smeared. Then they get deplatformed. Then they lose their job at the TV station. Whatever it is, any controversy that the government doesn't like or that people in power don't like, they're going to push back, like has happened to you. You go into government, you start messing with their system that has enriched so many of them, and they get pissed off. And then they start telling stories. Then they go to judges that they know, and they tell stories to them, and the judges go, that doesn't sound good. Yeah, let's keep him out of the county office. Let's label him a this or a that, and a threat. And you're smeared. Now, fortunately, we've known each other a while. You're a guy who's done well for himself. You're successful in real estate. You've got a mortgage company, all these things. They're not going to cancel you. They're not going to bury you. And if you never did another day in public service, it wouldn't affect your lifestyle in any way other than probably less stress. But they haven't been able to do that because you are the kind of guy that you are. I mean, now that I've gotten to know you over all this time, that you're willing to go in and be the person that you need to be to represent the people, because you're elected by the people to represent them in this massive bureaucracy. I appreciate you a lot for that you have the balls to do that. You've got, what, how many people in the assessor's office?
60.
60.
Yeah.
And of those 60, I imagine there's a percentage of them that would like to collect as much tax as possible. And then there's a percentage of them that would like to be as fair as possible. They push everything on being as fair as possible. And then there's probably some of them who are flat out tax deniers that would like to make the whole thing go away. They're probably in the tiny, tiny minority. But there are all these different people in this system, and you've got to go in there and represent the public. What is going to be the best for the public? If no taxes were collected, would that be in the best interest for the public? My anarchist friends would argue yes, but in reality, would the roads be able to be maintained? Would we have schools? There are a lot of services that government can provide, and taxes, at least in our system now, are necessary for that. But as a representative of government, finding out what is truly in the best interest of the individual and in the public as a whole, I think is very important. And that's a lot of why we're doing this, why we're doing Meet Your Leader, is because the way I see it, we have, Donald Trump, like him, hate him, whatever, he's the first president in my lifetime to not raise the most money. In my lifetime, he's the exception to the rule. Whoever raises the most money, buys the most ads, has the most teams walking the streets, knocking on doors, putting up signs, all the things that we see necessary to win a campaign, whoever raises the most money wins. 9 times out of 10. That means the people who have the most strings attached to them, the people who owe the most favors to wealthy people, business owners, banks, whoever, the people who are indebted the most are the ones that are representing the people in government? I doubt that. I don't think that's really the case. And I don't know how much money you've raised in your campaign over the couple times you've run it as assessor. My guess is you probably funded most of it out of your pocket because you're that kind of guy. But there's a lot. I mean, you're going to get a job that pays, say, $80,000 a year working for the county, but you raise what, $500,000 to get that? Does that make any sense? Am I going to come out of pocket so I can get a job that pays me $80,000 a year? Probably with better benefits than I get in the private sector. But other than that, it's like, does it make any sense? No. But if I've got friends who own construction companies or anybody who does business with the county, which is a lot, pretty much every big business does business with the county, with the state, there are a lot of favors that can be repaid.
Sure.
That's a problem.
It is. And, as you said earlier, trying to navigate some of these state websites is always a problem. But one website that everybody who wants to be informed should really look at is their campaign and contribution expense reports that candidates have to file. Mm-hmm. And when you look at that and you look who's giving the candidate money, and then you look at and you'll recognize the names of the companies and you'll recognize the names of the individuals, and then you see those same folks on the county websites for the agendas for the county commission meetings. You'll see the same names. Mm-hmm. They've got a contract coming up from the county, and how did this happen? How did somebody give a candidate $10,000 and then later on that same candidate is voting on a contract for that person? But it's worth looking at. I mean, if you want to be a little bit of a detective, that's what everybody should be looking at. And I'm going to post my opponents' contributions, their public record. I'm going to post them, post that information. I want people to see who's giving who the money. Follow the money. Mm-hmm. It's always follow the money. Who's giving who the money? It's state law that candidates and they're running for office have to share that with the state. Most candidates probably don't want everybody to see who's giving them money. Mm-hmm. There's many folks who don't want to be seen as giving candidates money. So they disguise it through their company, or they give it to a PAC, and the PAC gives it to the candidate. So it's kind of camouflaged instead of transparent. But the transparency is looking at who gives people money. I mean, I don't want to get into the city of Reno, but there's a candidate there that gets $40,000 or $50,000 from a developer, and then had the audacity to say that didn't affect his decision.
Right. Right.
I mean, how insulting that is to people. If somebody gives me $40,000 or $50,000, I'm probably going to take their phone call.
Right.
I'm probably going to be sympathetic to what they're trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't care if you're Warren Buffett, who got more money as Bill Gates, Bezos, Elon Musk. If somebody's giving you big buckets of money, you're probably going to talk to that person.
Mm-hmm.
And you might be inclined to vote the way they want you to vote. I mean, it's just don't take the money and then have the audacity to tell us it didn't affect your thinking.
Well, and I think it's not even...
But better idea, why don't you take the money and recuse yourself?
That's cool.
The best idea is don't take
a
the money.
vacation day on the vote.
Yeah. The best idea is don't take the money if it's going to affect your thought process.
Yeah.
It's just greed when you take money and then say it didn't affect your thinking. It's like...
Well, and it is, to be fair, from my experience in politics, it's when a candidate runs, they're not alone. You're basically alone, but you're county assessor, so it's not like a Senate or some big race.
Sure.
But the bigger the race, you're with a team of people.
Sure.
And most of that team of people is actively out fundraising. Mm-hmm. They're taking phone calls from people who have money, and they need money because they have an office to pay for, and they have salaries to pay for, and signs to, all that stuff, right? They have a business entity that exists for this campaign. And their survival as an employee of that entity depends on convincing you that the person who's putting money into that organization deserves your attention, because they're in a balancing act between, I need this money from this donor and I need to get my candidate to vibe with this person. So I'm going to play both sides, and I'm going to try to make this work, because if I get this money, I get to still have a job. Sure. And if my candidate wins or retains their seat, whatever, maybe I even get a win bonus. So there's a lot of manipulation that has layers in it, where you might have a candidate who has the best intentions. Honestly, I thought Barack Obama had great intentions going into office. He seemed like a very genuine person. He seemed like someone who you could really believe in. Maybe he was really good at faking that. There are a lot of people that would make that argument. But I think a lot of it is you get a massive organization around you, and they'll sway you. You become the people that you hang out with the most, regardless of how solid a human you are. You're going to be influenced by those around you. And if those around you are all trying to twist and turn and make things work so that the machine continues to function, you're going to bend to some degree. It's just a matter of how much. Mm-hmm. And that's a problem. It's a big problem. And I don't know if we have a solution to that problem. I hope in our lifetimes we figure that out. But I think the best opportunity we have to figuring that out is on the local level, where the teams are very small, where the budgets are a lot smaller, where you're actually able to connect the public. We can get together and, hi, how are you? Versus a president. You're never going to meet the president.
Sure.
I mean, unless you're really a wealthy donor.
Well, I think you're correct. I mean, all politics are local. I mean, you talk to people, and everybody's got their opinion about either they like what's happening in Washington or they don't like what's happening in Washington. They like what's happening in Carson City with the legislators. They don't. They like the governor. They don't like the governor. That's fine, but all politics are local. Mm-hmm. We can't really no matter how much you want to will it, you can't do anything about what's happening in Washington.
No.
Not
Not unless you're very wealthy.
Well, you and I will never have the power to do that.
No.
But we do have the power to clean up this county. We do have the power if enough of us recognize corruption, if enough of us recognize that my life didn't get any better because this person's been in office for the last 8 years, but his life got a whole lot better because he's been in office, that can be nipped in the bud. I mean, this whole narrative needs to be brought back to where it needs to be is the elected officials work for the people, not the other way around. They are not royalty.
Right.
Okay. The folks that are in office are condescending, they're rude, they don't help their constituents. In fact, they get in the way of their constituents. They don't help local businesses. You know, a good example, I don't have the exact numbers, but we've asked, and other people that I know have asked, is some of the first COVID money, the federal money that showed up in this county, CARES money, whatever the term is. We got money from the government,
A lot.
the federal government. One of the first things the county commissioners did is remodel their offices. Okay, their offices weren't in bad shape. They were serviceable the way they were. Why? And they won't tell us how much they spent of the money because they sandbag. People file requests for information, and we can't seem to get an exact number of how much money they spent. But you wonder how many seniors could have been helped with that money. You wonder how many veterans could have been helped with that money. You wonder what could have been done if somebody said, this is the amount of money we have, what's the best use for that money? The best use for that money wasn't a remodeling of the county commissioner's office.
No.
I don't know what the best use would have been, but it wasn't that.
The public could have at least been asked, maybe.
You know, there's restaurants that were struggling. There were businesses that were struggling. There were employees that were struggling. There were people that lost their jobs, couldn't go to work. The businesses closed. There were people that needed help. And let's find the way to help the most people with this amount of money instead of what color carpet do you want, and what color do you want on your walls, and how do we enlarge your office? I mean, talk about selfish, self-centered, stingy, and lack of leadership using money like that using that money, which was taxpayer money, to fund a plusher office for yourself. How greedy can you get?
Right.
You know, how self-centered can you get? In my opinion.
Right.
You know, why do that?
Was that something that was voted on at the county commissioners meetings?
I didn't follow exactly the procedure, but it got done. And then when it got done, people started asking how much did it cost, how much did you spend? And the county does everything it can to avoid answering those questions. When I'm elected, if somebody asks a question, we're going to share that information with everybody. We're going to make getting public information as easy as asking. They've got a staff down there at the county manager's office and the county commissioners. They've got a staff down there that's job is to prevent people from getting information. I don't know if you've ever filed a request for any information down there, but I hear it all the time from people that and myself included, when we've sent in a request for information, they stonewall, they sandbag, they camouflage, or they'll give you so much information that the information you're looking for is you're asking for a needle and they're giving you a haystack. Okay, that's the kind of thing. They give you so much information that you can't find it. So why have public records? First of all, why do anything on public records that you're embarrassed about?
Right.
Okay, that's the first rule.
Right.
Don't do anything that you're embarrassed about. Okay? If you do something you're embarrassed about and it's on public record, you're just going to have to live with it. That's public record.
Mm-hmm.
But what this crowd wants to do is prevent people from getting the public records. They're obsessed with it. You know, they like to seal records. They like to hide things. They like to change their name. They want to do things that will make it more difficult to see the picture.
Mm-hmm.
And there's only, in my opinion, I'm a skeptic. And I'm suspicious. Is when somebody's pulling that kind of stuff, they've got something to hide.
Mm-hmm.
And when somebody has something to hide, that's when I really want to see it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when somebody's trying to hide something from me, that's when we want to see it.
So what can be done? Can an elected official go in there and
Well,
wag the dog, as they say?
I'm running for office, and my platform is going to be complete transparency. Complete transparency. No censorship.
Mm-hmm.
There should be none. It's county business. That means it's the people's business. That means it's funded by the people. It's funded by the people's hard work, their equities in their properties, their paychecks. However the county extracts this money out of the citizens, it's the citizens' money.
Mm-hmm.
And the citizens have a right, and I understand apathy. They may not want to know it, but those who do want to know it should have access to everything that the county does. Everything.
Mm-hmm.
Every contract, everything should be open to look at.
And how hard would that be?
Okay, so
We have all
this
the
is
technology.
this is a county government. This isn't the federal government. This isn't the FBI. This isn't secrets on how to build an atomic bomb.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this isn't national security kind of stuff. This is public business of, quite frankly, a little county in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, a little county, and they want to act like you can't see what we are doing.
Mm-hmm.
When somebody tells you that through actions or words, then you should really dig in and see what the heck's going on. Or what are they embarrassed about? What don't they want you to see? This is like a magician, okay? Magicians are over here doing this, and they don't want you to see what's going on over here. They want you to focus on this. Well, they're doing something over here.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's what the county's doing. The county doesn't want you to see what's going on.
Yeah.
Why is that?
I think
Okay.
the answer is pretty obvious. But so if you get in there, you're running for county commission.
Sure.
You've got Von Hartung, who when he's not on vacation, he's in there.
Mm-hmm.
You've got Jeannie Herman.
Mm-hmm.
You're running for Bob Lucy's seat.
District 2, yes.
Who am I missing?
Kitty John, Alexis Hill.
Okay.
Okay.
So, of those commissioners, is there any reason why any one of them being presented with an opportunity to create transparency in the county government would be able to argue against that if given in a public forum on a live streamed video feed on the county's website, as long as that doesn't go down mysteriously?
Well, I think you would have to ask them that. I mean, my position is it's publicly funded. The taxpayers are paying for it. Everything should be on the table to see. Take a look. Here's why we did this. And then defend why this company got the contract. You know, I know, just a quick aside, the assessor's office has a fleet of vehicles that we're going out to visit construction sites in different places.
Mm-hmm.
And well, we've got some vehicles that the assessor's office uses, and a few years back we traded in some cars with low profile because we were going out on construction sites when homes are being built, and you know there isn't pavement sometimes, so you're driving in the dirt, you're driving on construction sites. So we ended up trading in some cars that weren't working right because the ground clearance was so low, and got a couple of Jeeps to use. And we ended up buying the Jeeps. The county bought the Jeeps from a dealership in Carson City. And you know, I had no opportunity to talk about that as the assessor. But had I been on the county commission, I would have bought from the local Jeep dealership here in this county.
Yeah.
You know, this Jeep dealership, even if they were the same, maybe even if they were a little bit more, I would have bought locally. And here's why. The Jeep dealer at the time, Weir was a Jeep dealer here at the time. I mean, he owns real estate in this county. He pays taxes. He's got employees that own real estate here in this county. They pay taxes. They purchase things here, sales taxes. They pay fines when they get speeding tickets. There were hundreds of people that probably worked at the Jeep, Dodge Jeep dealership here in Reno that were local citizens. Why is the county buying vehicles in Carson City? That was my question. So had I been an elected official at the time, I wouldn't have approved a purchase of goods and services that we can get here in this county outside the county. We see these signs all around: shop local, feel good, shop local. Well, let's have the leadership doing that as well. Let's shop locally. Let's find out about why are we buying something out of the county? Okay, I understand now. I just heard, and I don't have 100% verification, but it's going to come up. The elections, the ballots are being printed in California for Washoe County. Who the heck would not use a local printer for that?
Right.
I mean, if we can't find somebody in Washoe County that can handle that job, there's got to be somebody in the state of Nevada that could do it, even if it's a little bit more. You're
Right.
hiring, you're keeping the money in this economy. Why in the heck are we sending Washoe County business to California? That's what I want to know.
Yeah.
Give me a good reason.
While you bring up elections, there are a lot of people that question the validity of our last election. There's a lot of stories floating around about different things that have gone on. I don't know enough about this, but you're much more in tune with government stuff. Does the county commission, do county commissioners or the county commission as a whole have oversight over our elections, or is that an unelected officer? Who's in charge of all the elections in Washoe County? How's that dealt with?
Well, as I've said earlier here, there's 31 different departments in the county, and some of them are elected. About 7 of them are elected, and the others are appointed. They're employees of the county.
Right.
So the registrar of voters here is an employee of the county.
So unelected.
Unelected. So that particular person is coming under a lot of fire from people who have started to investigate the voter rolls. And the county commissioners are her boss. They can direct her to do what needs to be done.
Okay.
It remains to be seen if that's going to happen or not, but there's been a group of folks that have started investigating and trying to make sure that these voter rolls match up with the actual voters. I saw 2 presentations last week that there's approximately 65,000 people on the voter rolls here that weren't here a couple of years ago. Okay. They've done a study, they've done some sampling, they've got some information, and they'd like to share that with the county. And the county remains to be seen whether they're going to look at it or not. But the presentation I saw, and I'm just going from memory, they had, 3,000 or 4,000 deceased people that still get ballots. They had numerous, and I'm talking several thousand parcels of land that didn't have a development, didn't have an improvement on it. In other words, they were,
Empty land.
empty land, raw land, sagebrush, whatever was on the land, that had dozens of people using that address. So,
Wow.
so those are the kind of things And it remains to be seen what the county commissioners are going to do. If I were a county commissioner, I would embrace that. I would look at it and find out if these folks who've done these samples have correct information. I would want to do everything I can. It goes back to public record and transparency. I want to do everything I can to make sure that the voter rolls are correct here. And as a supervisor, a county commissioner here, supervising the Registrar of Voters, I want to make sure she's doing a good job. And apparently the allegations are that it isn't. So it remains to be seen. We'll see how that plays out. But at the very least, at the assessor's office, if somebody comes to us with information that is different than ours, we want to see it. We want to embrace it. We want to look at it. We want to see if that's accurate. It comes to us every year. Somebody comes in and they've got a compelling reason why our value is different. That what our value is different from what they think, and if they've got good reasons, then we'll make an adjustment. I think the leadership of this county should look at this survey that'll be coming out pretty quick, and all the public needs to look at this as well. There's 65 or 70,000 people on the tax rolls that weren't there a while ago, and it doesn't make sense why they're there. If you look back historically in America, the last 20 or 30 years, it's usually between 45 and maybe 55% of the eligible voters show up. And again, it was just this presentation that I saw twice last week. They said that we're approaching 100% turnout in voters. I don't believe that.
It's pretty crazy.
I don't believe that.
Yeah.
If you talk to the one county commissioner, Jeannie Herman, who didn't vote to certify the last election, she will tell you, and anybody who wants to hear it, and it should be national news, it certainly should be local news, Jeannie Herman will tell you that I don't know the exact term for it, hard drives, thumb drives, cartridges, something from the voters, from the precincts came up missing the night of the election. I know Jeannie Herman to be truthful. If she looks me in the eye and says all of those votes weren't there, I believe that.
So there's the Registrar of Voters,
Right.
handles the voter rolls.
Correct.
But then the county commissioners vote to certify or not to certify the election.
Correct.
Are there the only five voices?
5 votes, yeah.
5 votes.
5 votes, yeah.
So
So in that last election, 4 commissioners voted to certify it, and 1 did not. And I think she's got a compelling reason why she did not. It's her belief, and maybe she's somebody that you should interview in the future, Jeannie Herman, and ask her. And I believe her because she's never had reason to not tell me the facts. She has no reason to lie to anybody about anything. That took place in the election, and people need to find out if what she's saying is factual. Then we've got a problem.
sounds like we do have a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what all happened in the last election, but the amount of fraud was a number greater than 0. It was definitely more than 0. We don't know how bad it was. I think 65,000 with even the crazy growth we've had over the last couple of years here. I don't see an extra 65,000 people. And I have seen some of the stuff with these addresses, freeway overpasses, and
Sure.
some of this stuff is pretty nuts.
Well, I think when between early voting, between mail-in ballots, between the DMV getting involved in voter registration, that every time they do something that just adds more room for mischief. Okay, the DMV now registers you to vote. used to be registering to vote was something that you willfully had to want to do.
Mm-hmm.
I want to vote, therefore I have to find a place and register to vote. I want to vote on election day. I go before work. I go during the lunch hour. I go after work. I go in the evening, and I vote. And now it's mail-in, early voting. Just the reason why I'm opposed to early voting is you might vote 2 weeks before the election day.
Mm-hmm.
Well, anything could happen in those 2 weeks. You could vote, down in Southern Nevada. Dennis Hoff won the election after he was dead. I mean, anything can happen. You could find out something horrible about a candidate, and if you voted and you find out a week before the polls close, and you voted the week before that, you're 2 weeks before, you can't go in and change your vote.
Mm-hmm.
You're stuck. I mean, you should vote on an election day. If it's important enough to vote, you should figure out a way to get there and vote.
Yeah.
Maybe somebody said it should be a holiday for everybody so they could vote. I wouldn't be opposed to that, but
It's kind of tough, though. I mean, to counter your point there, for example, what if you're out of town that day? You're going to be on vacation. We've already scheduled a vacation. The whole family, we're going to Hawaii. It happens to fall on election day. But I know who I'm voting for. I've researched everything. I want to vote ahead of time. Mm-hmm. I'm going to go down to my local grocery store or wherever it is, do my early voting, but they're going to check my ID. They're going to know it's me. If somebody comes in and tries to vote a different way and say they're me, if they don't have my ID, they don't get to vote, which I think we still have voter ID in this state, at least for the time being.
Yeah, well, I think that, there's obviously some room for compromise, but just for me, I'm just old school. I vote on the day that
I do too.
That's the election day. If somebody were going out of town and, not everybody's going to Hawaii on election day, so it's a small percentage, and with proper ID, maybe there is a way to go and vote early.
I don't understand why we can't just vote on our phones yet. If I can get into my Wells Fargo account and nobody else can get into my Wells Fargo account, I don't know why we haven't worked that out yet. I know that there are a lot of blockchain, open source, no closed source, Diebold or any of these machines that that have been under scrutiny for good reason, because they're all closed code. It's a closed environment. You don't get to know what's going on in the background, but you get fractions of votes, and they don't have a good explanation for how you can get fractions of votes. That's something to look at. But that we don't have open source, blockchain-based, immutable, infallible voting systems. Even those people who are out there that are, preaching we've got election integrity issues, and citing all of these things, the solution that they propose is paper ballots. Just paper ballots, and have, one representative from the blue team and one representative from the red team standing over shoulders and making sure that it's all above board. And okay, that's a step in the right direction, because then if you wanted to really mess with an election, you'd have to buy off a print shop and have to print up a bunch of ballots. Gosh, where could you ever find someone who likes money and owns a print shop? I don't know if that's possible. I think it's silly. And their arguments are, well, there are only 11 printers in the United States who can make this. It's like, okay, how do you know, for one, who can do what everywhere? Because I'm pretty sure the federal government's chasing down counterfeiters of bills all over the place, tracking down $20 bills, $100 bills that are being made in people's basements all the time. Is it really that difficult for you to track down white paper ballots? Are those that hard to make? I guess is my point. I think it's a silly patch on the problem that they're going for that. I think it is an improvement. But if we were to make an improvement by saying, okay, we're going to do, if it's mail-in, it's only using these special ballots that have this hard-to-make watermark in them, and that'll guarantee that everything's good, I don't buy it. I don't buy that that's the case. I think voting in person, even if you did voting in person, early voting and day of voting would be fine because I'm there. We go there together. Put your ID down. They look you up. Yeah, okay, you live at this. Okay, good. Check. You're done. Even if it was all on paper, fine. You can create a system that is all above board, and it would be much harder to mess with.
Sure.
On the scale that it gets reported, as they're saying all these ballot dumps of 100,000 ballots just show up, and all of a sudden then they all vote one way, or 98% of them vote one way. It's like, well, that seems odd. I'm pretty sure that people can print ballots, so I don't think that that's the solution to the problem. I hope that somebody with some audience or power in government starts pushing for blockchain solutions to this. And I know it's terrifying to a lot of people who don't understand blockchain, because almost nobody understands blockchain. That, we're putting it in a computer. Well, people hack computers all the time. But
well, as we said earlier, all politics are local, and here in this county, it's a small enough county. There's approximately 500,000 people, 500,000 people, depending on who you talk to, state demographer or census, U.S. Census. But it's a small enough number because out of those, many are children, many, so it whittles it down to, probably a few 100,000 people who potentially could be voters. Mm-hmm. So it's a small enough manageable number, and with the proper leadership here, if the leadership had the will, they could clean up this county's voter rolls and be the epicenter of maybe a national movement to do that. We've got a group of folks that have already taken the time to really study the voter rolls and show where there's some absolute inconsistencies. And when you see these absolute inconsistencies, the leadership, the county commissioner, should embrace this and review it and find out exactly if this person, this group of people making these allegations, if it's correct, fix it. Mm-hmm. But don't just say, don't be the ostrich with your head in the sand and say, that's not happening here. We're perfect.
It's the big lie.
We are not perfect here.
No.
We are not perfect here. Let's try and get to the bottom of it. Let's be able to have let's have the leadership here. If I'm elected county commissioner, I will lead the charge to make sure that those voter rolls are cleaned up and that we can hold them up to scrutiny to anybody. Okay? Mm-hmm. Anybody can look at that and say there's no dead voters here. There's no multiples. There's no fake addresses. There's no people living in 30 people living on a piece of raw land somewhere. Mm-hmm. There's no apartment buildings that don't exist. There's no false addresses. I mean, the assessor's office controls approximately 189,000 parcels here in this county. We know how many linear foot of fencing is on those properties. We know how many wells are out there. We know how many square footage, what's the square footage of the improvements. We know the quality. We can manage 189,000 parcels with hundreds of different identifiers. How hard is it to manage a couple 100,000 names and figure out where they live, and if there's really there, if they're really people? It's this mail-in voting is who knows who's handling it. I mean, we all watch these crime investigation shows, and it's the chain of evidence. Who knows that somebody signed that or didn't sign that? Mm-hmm. Who knows that there's really a person by that name? Mm-hmm. There's no integrity in this. There's no checks and balances. a piece of paper shows up, maybe somebody signed it, maybe that's a real person. Who knows?
Yeah, the signature verification seemed fishy.
Yeah.
That was I went down the rabbit hole a little bit on some of the election integrity stuff, and the signature verification one was a really big one that it just got thrown out in a lot of places.
Sure.
That's a scary thing.
There's a person running for assessor. His name is Chris Sarman.
Mm-hmm.
Chris Sarman ran in the last election. He ran against me. I'm endorsing Chris Sarman. I think he'll do a good job as the next assessor here in the county. But as a candidate in the last election, 2 elections ago now, he was a candidate and his name didn't show up in every precinct's machine.
Wow.
Okay, so he has personal knowledge of that. It's somebody should talk to about that. Is here's a candidate who knows his name wasn't on every single machine.
How did he just from people telling him, or
People at different locations that he knew saw that his wasn't on there and took pictures of it and sent it to him. But I mean, again, that's me telling you what he's told me. But
right.
Somebody should interview him about that, and if that's the case, there's an example of just a way. Maybe it was intentional, maybe it wasn't, maybe it was just sloppy. Who knows? But that's the kind of thing that should make everybody concerned about the integrity of the elections. Is if a candidate isn't on there,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and take it a step further, in that election, the candidate that I was running against used his nickname.
Mm-hmm.
The county registrar of voters allowed somebody to use their nickname on there. You're supposed to, state law says you've got to use your given name.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at that time, that's a beef that I have with the registrar of voters, is she allowed this person to use his nickname on there. Well, what if I want to call myself Abe Lincoln Clark, or George Washington Clark, or John Glenn, or come up with a nickname that has a favorable connotation? Can anybody run under any name? I brought this to the county's attention after that election. I had to hire an attorney to write a letter to the Secretary of State. The Secretary of State had to admonish the local registrar of voters that state law clearly says you've got to use your real name. I mean, you could use your real name in parentheses, have a nickname, but you can't go into it with a nickname.
And that's what they ended up doing, right? They did parentheses.
I'm not sure if they did
They
it that
corrected
way.
it every time.
But they didn't correct it at first, and this person had run and had run in multiple other elections. He'd probably run for election 4 or 5 times for other places, and each and every other time he used his nickname. County Registrar of Voters allowed him to do that. The County Registrar of Voters should at least be knowledgeable and follow state law. Mm-hmm. Their staff should know what the election laws are if they're going to be the registrar of voters, or they're the ones who are going to put the ballots together. Mm-hmm. Okay, they talk about printing ballots. And get back to, it's my understanding that the county is awarded contracts to print ballots out of state. Well, do we know if that's a secure printing location? Do we know if the employees who work there have been fingerprinted? Do we know if they've had background checks? What do we know about that? Mm-hmm. What type of control, what guarantee does the county, Washoe County, have over a printer out of state? How do we know what's going on over there? I'm not saying that there's anything wrong going on there, but what checks and balances do we have in there to maintain the integrity of that election when we send our voter information to someone? How do we know that system couldn't be hacked?
Right.
I don't know.
Maybe it was. Maybe that's why Chris Sarman was not on.
I don't know that.
Yeah. So what does it take to get fired as a registrar of voters?
I don't know.
I mean, she might be great. She might be okay at doing her job and had a couple really bad screw ups that just happened to come to light in your world. But I gotta imagine it's more than that.
Well, there's some folks, and I'll give you their name after we were done with this because I don't want to put it on this, but you should go talk to them. They put together a PowerPoint presentation showing all the inconsistencies because they really studied this. I mean, they didn't just. I'm just passing along what I saw as a presentation, and I don't have a 100% recall memory on verbatim of what it said, but I'm sure they'll share it with you. And they've gone so far as to say that they believe there's criminal activity there. So,
I mean, on a large scale, I saw the fraction magic video that's out all over. Well, it's probably still on YouTube. Who knows now? Maybe it's on Rumble or one of those. But that was really concerning to see the way that whole thing worked. It doesn't make any sense.
I didn't see that video, but probably the same type of thing is allegedly happening here in this county now, and people spend a lot of money and a lot of time doing samples and surveys and just pointing out inconsistencies with what's on the registrar's roles at this point in time.
Yeah. Well, I know in the Dominion, some of the Dominion materials that they showed, there were features of the voting system where you could put caps on percentages of votes that go a given way. And then there's a adjudication area where if there's anything wrong with a signature or anything, many reasons where a vote could get thrown into adjudication, it gets thrown into a bin, and there's no transparency, no controls whatsoever. One person can go in and take all of the votes from that folder and put them wherever they choose.
Sure.
And there's no verification on that. And that's troubling.
So obviously I don't have a background in the Registrar of Voters office, so need to maybe interview her.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe interview the folks that are alleging that information is incorrect. But the other thing is this Registrar of Voters, in addition to controlling the voter rolls and the ballots, her office picks who gets to work at the polls. Her office and her office only. Mm-hmm. So that apparently is an area of concern. People have alleged that people came in to work at the polls who didn't live in this county, didn't live in this state, who had a political agenda of their own, bust in from other places. So I mean that's something that you need to if you're going to continue this series is talk to see if this person will sit for an interview.
Yeah.
You need to see if the people who are doing the research on the Registrar of Voters to see if they would sit on it. I think they'd be happy to share it with you because they're in the belief that their information is more accurate than the Registrar of Voters, and if that's the case, that should be concerning to everyone.
Yeah.
Okay. So I look at this as a nonpartisan issue. And what I mean by that is if whoever's in power can control the elections, if it's your team, maybe that's a good thing. Maybe you're happy. But if it isn't, it can go the other way if the other team gets control of the elections and can outperform you with levels of mischief. Mm-hmm. So it should be nonpartisan. Everybody's vote should count. Everybody that's eligible should be able to vote. Everybody who's eligible should be able to vote, and everybody's vote should count. And it should be election integrity for everybody. Mm-hmm. It devalues everybody. You used an example a little bit ago about counterfeit money. Well, counterfeit money devalues everyone's money.
And yet we're all playing with counterfeit money. If you think about it, they just print it out of nowhere.
And that's a whole different discussion. But if your vote is devalued and diminished, it's counterfeit votes is no different than counterfeit money. There's a reason it devalues the worth of your vote. It devalues the worth of your dollar. Funny, I was in Ireland, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago. And over in Europe then, no one would take $100 bills, US $100 bills. I was over there and somebody knew somebody who was the bank manager in one of the Irish banks and made a phone call and vouched for me that, because I took, money with me, thinking I would change it over there. And I did. And at the bank over there, and they had to call and vouch for me and say, I know this guy and he's not a counterfeiter, and I was able to do that. But before that, you couldn't. Nobody would take a $100 bill over there.
Wow.
So when you get out of this country, here, every time you use a $100 bill around here, if you do that, they're holding it up and writing with a pen on it. Now I see they're doing that with 20s and 10s.
Yeah.
So, I mean, apparently the counterfeiting people are getting so good at it that they're able to make 5s, 10s, whatever,
Some of them are pretty rough. I worked for a bank right out of college. And no, I was in college. And I had fake $5 bills come in. And the idea was they would think, well, who's going to suspect? It's just a 5. And this was when color printers were, not as great as they are now. And they would take them and they'd do it on like a card stock, and then they'd crumple it up and do stuff to it and kind of just make it look like a beat up old bill. If you're working with money all day, every day, a fake when you get it. So unless it was a good 100 maybe. Sure. I probably had fake hundreds that came over that I didn't know.
Sure. I think there are machines now at the banks that are pretty accurate on detecting.
Yeah, we didn't have that. I'm getting old. We didn't have all that fancy stuff like they do now. Yeah. Wow. Well, what else is going on in your life? The real estate market's blown up. Your mortgage business is probably rocking and rolling because interest rates are low for the moment.
It's one thing about real estate. It's never balanced. There's either too many buyers and not enough sellers, too many sellers and not enough buyers. The interest rate is up. I mean, there's never in perfect alignment. So in real estate now, with the political climate that we have in California, people are able to sell. I hear this on a regular basis. People that live in, Campbell or somewhere in the Bay Area, sell a 1,400 square foot house for $1.2, $1.4 million, and then they move to Nevada with literally wheelbarrows full of cash, and they outbid the locals. I mean, the average sales prices now are pushing just under 600,000. I heard 585 the other day for average house. Just a few years ago, you could buy a really, really nice house for about $350. Now you can't buy that in Fernley.
No.
So the prices have gone up a couple $100,000. The average person can't save that kind of money. So people come in and they've sold a house somewhere else, and then they come over here and they've driven the prices up. The other thing that's taken place is, again, it's just what I read in the paper and what the Board of Realtors puts out, but about 51% of the properties are being sold cash. People are coming in and paying cash.
Wow.
More than half the time. That's highly unusual.
It is unusual.
So between the people driving up the prices, the cash buyers.
Are the cash buyers companies? I've heard that Zillow's buying houses, that there's some different companies that are coming in and buying up houses and then turning them into rentals.
It's across the board. It's just, we've just got, again, it's the political instability of California. The people can get out of there who don't like the the tax situation, who don't like the political climate, or following a job, many number of reasons why they're moving to Nevada are driving the prices up.
But why would you buy a house in cash? If you've got money, theoretically you know a little bit about managing money, and you're going to buy a house with a mortgage, pay whatever 2.5% on that money for your mortgage. You're going to get a fat tax write-off for the end of the year, and you got to keep your cash to go play around in the stock market or buying Dogecoin when Elon Musk tweets about it or whatever. It doesn't make a lot of sense to buy a house in cash. It is weird.
Everybody's got their own reasons.
It's just odd. That one
That'd be good
makes me curious.
That'd be good to pull some public records and see who paid cash and.
Is that a public record?
And interview them. Well, if it doesn't show a recorded mortgage.
Oh. Dude, this is your wheelhouse, not mine.
Yeah, so
I'm a media
So
guy.
you could find out and interview cash buyers and find out why they paid cash. It'd be interesting. But back to this real estate market is crazy here. I mean, during those economic downtimes that we were talking about earlier, when the economy really went in the toilet, up until that time, this county had historically had built 3,000 plus single family homes annually. But in the economic times when you couldn't give away a house around here, when the average sale price was $150,000 instead of $550, back in those days, the builders, the general contractors, the subcontractors, they all left this area. So there was a period of 7 or 8 years where about 20,000 houses roughly didn't get built. We can't go back in a time machine and build those. I mean, those homes did not come out of the ground. And so that caused a shortage of properties. That plus the influx of people from other areas now coming into our area. I mean, there's gridlock on the freeways around here in the mornings and evenings that we didn't choose to have. So there's a lot more people here. The builders can't build the houses fast enough. They just literally can't build the houses fast enough. Fewer folks are putting their houses on the market, so there's a shortage of used inventory, there's a shortage of new inventory, and there's an oversupply of qualified buyers. So it's just the perfect storm for housing shortage. And that's what we have. And nobody wants to say this, but when that happens, one of the ways to take the pressure off is to take the pressure off. Not everybody gets to live in Reno.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, when I wanted a 5-acre horse ranch in Malibu, and I went there and I said, I want an affordable horse ranch on the beach in Malibu. And you know what they told me? They said, why don't you move to Reno?
Worked out.
Okay. So it's laughing, but people want to live in Reno, but maybe you don't get to. Maybe people want to live on the beach in San Diego. They want to live in Hawaii. They want to live in San Francisco. They want to live right next to Central Park. Well, the price is the qualifier. And sooner or later, if you can't afford to live here, but you want to own a house, you might have to go somewhere else. And that would help take the pressure off. We've got pressure, external pressure, in my opinion, is what's causing the issues that we have here with housing.
There could be a trickle-down effect, too. There are a lot of people who have jobs in the Bay Area and they don't go to work anymore. Because post-COVID, they can come here, still make their fat California salary, live in Nevada, live like a king, take the house of someone who was doing fine in Reno, but now maybe that person in Reno or a different person in Reno to offset it also doesn't have to go to work because of COVID. They can do their job online. Their employer is not having to pay for as much commercial real estate space or whatever. Sure. They can then telework from Fernley or some outlying smaller town and they can live cheaper,
Sure.
no commute.
Well, there are maps available if somebody wanted to look at it of every single county in the United States. And you could look at the map and you could look at what the average income is for that particular county. And then you can look at the average sales price. And there are affordable counties in the United States. If somebody really wants to own a home, they might have to go where they can afford to buy something versus where they want to be. I mean, it's just, do you want a house? But you're going to get a house, but it might not be in the city you want to be in. So it's a trade-off. I mean, here the rentals are extremely hard to find. Rentals are hard to find. Resales are hard to find. Housing is at a premium here, and there's external pressure that it's just causing that. So the answer might be. Political stability, you're back in their home state, which I don't know if that's going to happen, not in the near future. Builders can't build here fast enough. Interest rates are inching up. We're now in the 4s, so that would have a tendency to cool things off. But if the trend continues with a lot of cash buyers, interest rates are not going to slow anything down. If you're paying cash, you don't care.
Right.
So it'll take some of the first-time buyers out and some of the buyers out of the interest rates inch up. But as a whole, the market here is just superheated. There's just not enough.
Yeah.
It's supply and demand.
My understanding is the county commission also approves some master planning things, right? Like zoning and that sort of stuff. Is that right?
That and certain subdivisions get approved by the county, absolutely. Yeah. So, and there are issues where people apply to the county and they're trying to build, but the builders now aren't building, for the most part, entry-level homes like they used to. It's no different than what happens in the automobile market. I mean, I know people have paid over $100,000 for a pickup truck. Mm-hmm. I mean, you used to be able to buy a pickup truck, and it was a utilitarian thing, and now they come with flat screen TVs and carpet and electric this and electric that and navigation. And so car manufacturers like to load up cars with options because that's how they make more money. And builders are doing the same thing. Builders are now loading up houses with lots of other options. So it isn't just an entry-level house anymore. I mean, there's few subdivisions that are entry-level houses. If you're going to sell a house, you can make more profit on a more median to upscale kind of a property. So they're not building affordable houses like they used to. There's some, there's subdivisions around in northern Nevada that were entry-level kind of subdivisions. The houses didn't have all the bells and whistles. Now the houses are being built with bells and whistles. And so that increases the price of the property, but it also increases the profitability for the builder. So the builders have determined that, hey, it's just as well to sell a fancy house is an entry-level house. In fact, we make more money at it, so why not do that? So it's affordability, it's options, it's lots of things go into play with the home prices, and let's face it, builders are like any other business. They want to make a profit. I mean, sometimes people vilify builders, but I think as a human race, certainly Americans, we've all grown accustomed to living indoors. Yeah. And there's a rare person that can build their own house. If it wasn't for builders, we'd really be in bad shape. So vilifying builders is not the answer.
But there are programs to like HUD, for example. Mm-hmm. Not that I'm big into government handouts, but are the days of HUD subsidized housing projects, are those gone?
I haven't, I don't see much of that, but I'm sure there might be some of that. But again, if the economy is booming and people are coming in and they're paying cash and the average sales price is $500,000 north of $500,000, a lot of those government programs were for, couple $100,000 house. I mean, it might not have kept up pace with what's available on the open market, but maybe there are those subsidies in other markets. I need to look into that.
I just thought there were millions of dollars that were coming in from the HUD that get allocated through whatever means they get allocated, and that helps create affordable housing for people who can't afford these $500,000.
So the affordable housing is, when people say affordable housing, how is that achieved? I mean, when I hear a politician say affordable housing, how is that achieved? I mean, you've got the cost of land, you've got the cost of labor, you've got the cost of materials, you've got the cost of government. The government. I mean, I hear it's, depending on the subdivision, could be anywhere from $40,000 to $70,000 in the price of a new house is going for government inspections and fees and permits and.
Where does that money go?
Well, that goes right to the local government. Okay, so the builders have to pay those fees, and then the builders have to tack that onto the price of the home. So affordable housing, if you get affordable housing, that means somebody gave you the land, and somebody gave you the lumber, and somebody gave you the stucco, and somebody gave you the wiring, and somebody gave you the plumbing, and somebody gave you the concrete, and somebody gave you the carpet.
Well, that would make it free.
Yeah, or at a reduced rate, okay?
Right.
All of those things I just told you, the components of a house. Anybody who sells the components of the house wants to get fair market value for whatever materials they sell.
Well, maybe that's all true. Maybe they get fair market value for all of it. Maybe they get a good, rate on your labor, but they get $18 million from the government. So all of a sudden now they've offset a lot of those costs and they're able to come in and charge a cheap rate, but they received so much money from the federal government, which of course came from all of us. But it leveled it back off again to where it made financial sense for them as business owners to make that project happen and still serve the underserved in the population. And I'm not making an excuse for doing that, but if those programs exist and the money's coming in, shouldn't it go to places where it's able to do that?
So we'll circle back to that package of information that I sent out. If anybody takes the time to read that, they talk about that in the city of Reno. A developer had gone to the city of Reno and was asking for some of those government subsidies to build affordable housing.
Where's that?
It's in the package. You'll need
Okay.
people. I'm going to leave a teaser in here.
Okay.
And people read this, and you'll see how that was subverted.
All right. Did you put this package online yet?
It's online, but we need to beef it up. Because in that particular package, and that's one of the gems in this package that really had nothing to do with the county, it's how the city of Reno had government funds that were allocated, appears to be allocated to a very wealthy developer, and they were able to get some massive tax breaks that weren't necessarily passed on in lower sales prices or lower rents.
So it was like an expensive project that
It was
didn't
like
serve.
government bonds, government money, government funds, reduced taxes, something that benefited the developer that the developer may not have passed through to the consumer.
That's in the packet.
Yeah, that's in the packet.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
I'll have to. You can give me a link after this, and I'll include it in the description.
Yeah.
So people can fish around on their own.
Sure. And that was pretty interesting information. And if it did happen the way it did, people that are other than me should be looking into it. Maybe the FBI should be looking into it. Maybe the city of Reno might have some exposure. Maybe the city of Reno might have to pay back some money if somebody investigates it. And that's why I said, I read this, I found it interesting. I wanted other people to look at it and find out, somebody who had the power to do some investigating and see if there was anything there.
I hope somebody does. I hope more people like you do. Yeah. Well, you want to wrap it up? Is there anything else you wanted to cover today?
You know, I do want to talk about, circle back to what was said in court and what was said on the temporary restraining order. The temporary restraining order is either full of lies.
And it's still in place, right?
It's still in place.
How is it still in place?
Not temporary. Now it's a restraining order.
Now it's permanent.
Now it's for a year. So there's a restraining order that was based on lies.
First, there was the picture that she didn't know where it came from, but she did. What other lies were there?
Well, the whole premise of this was this restraining order was I was harassing them, and on the restraining order they talk about me mailing this package out, and they felt threatened, and on and on and on about this. But yet when they were in court,
I hear Bob Lucy's in therapy over this.
when they're in court, and again I'll post this transcript, anybody can read it. The county manager, the postal inspector, the sheriff, the county security, everybody said that was a threat in the restraining order, the application for a restraining order. Yet under oath, they all said that after looking at it, it really wasn't a threat. So between the assistant county manager claiming that she didn't know where this picture came from, and the DA swearing that everything was accurate on there, they all changed their tune under oath in a court situation. So, and then you're funny that you brought that up. In the transcript, Bob Lucy has said that because of me passing out these public records, that he has to go to therapy now. And I thought, if reading about yourself in public records forces you to go into therapy, what does that say?
I hope he's getting something out of his therapy.
Yeah, I mean, what does that say? That he had to go to therapy because it was almost, to me, laughable. It was just it was playing for sympathy in the courtroom. Your Honor, I have to go to therapy because Clark passed out these public records and I just don't know what to do with myself. I mean, come on. This is, on one hand, you want to be a hard-boiled political leader of the county, and on the other hand, you're cowered up in the fetal position because somebody passed out public records. It's just laughable. But back to that, what I was getting at is I've had this restraining order. We instantly filed an appeal for the restraining order, and we can't get in front of a judge. It's somehow or another fallen through the cracks. I can't get a hearing to bring up what I was just talking about, is the inconsistencies between what they said on the restraining order and what they said in court. I want a judge or them or somebody, the public, to look at this and say, which day were they telling the truth? Were they telling the truth the day they filed under penalty of perjury the restraining order, or were they telling the truth the day they were sworn in front of a judge? They're 180 degrees off. It's one or the other. Which day were they telling the truth and which day were they lying? I want a judge to determine that, and I can't get in front of a judge.
You can't get in front of a judge. And, the other part that you didn't bring up that I found really worrisome is that how many of your packets were intercepted by sheriff's deputies. Tell the story of how you mailed these packages. You did them in 2 batches, right?
Correct.
Please tell me how that happened.
So, and it's in the court transcripts, what took place. I took these packages, I mailed them out.
How'd you mail them?
I went to the post office and mailed them.
So you walk in with a box full of stuff?
Full and mailed them.
And you gave them to the clerk?
And they weighed each and every one of them.
Okay.
And as they weighed them, they printed out a label, and the dollar amount was, unless the package was going out of state, was right. It was the same to the penny.
So you weren't sitting at home pounding whiskey and sitting on stamps.com and just going, oh, this should do it, and sticking them on there. No, you went in there.
They were weighed and measured, width, length, weight, and the postal computer printed out a label, and the postal worker took it off the computer and affixed it to each package. So some of those went out to county employees, some of them went out to private citizens, some of them got to the county employees. Some of those folks immediately took them over and shared them with the county manager's office. And again, this is right out of the transcripts. Somehow or another, at the time, Lucy was, I believe, the chairman of the county. When Lucy saw what was going on, he contacted the sheriff and convinced the sheriff, somebody at the sheriff's office, that there was a threat. And that person at the sheriff's office contacted the postal inspector and convinced them there was a threat. And then they started seizing the mail. Some of them got through, some of them didn't, according to their testimony in court. So I don't know what happened behind the scenes other than what they've testified to. But then as they were questioned in the hearing, they all recanted that there really was no threat. They tried to make it sound as if I'd put rice in there, or there was an explosive device in there, or they looked at all of them to make sure they weren't going to explode, and they checked them to see if there was a biological component to it, and all of this nonsense in front of the judge. They're trying to make this look like a big deal. This was public records sent out through the U.S. mail by me. Okay, it's as simple as that.
And intercepted by sheriff's deputies.
And that's what I'm told, that somehow or another the sheriff was able, with the tracking numbers, to intercept these. I don't really know what ever took place with them. I know I paid for these to be mailed, and at least 100 of them didn't get delivered. I want to know why.
Did you get a refund for your postage?
No, did not.
Okay, so they're intercepting mail, which I know about this much about law, but I'm told that interfering with the mail is a federal offense. Mm-hmm. And yet they had no issue doing that. So they were so concerned about the package of public records that you were sending out to important people that they would risk doing time in a federal penitentiary, or putting someone else in the position where they're going to do time in a federal penitentiary for intercepting the mail. And that the fear was so great that they would do that. That to me is very telling. Maybe I'm ignorant. I don't know.
So with me putting the incorrect return address on it, they think that neutralizes what they've done.
Well, you did screw up. That was a bonehead move.
Yeah.
I give them points for that.
Yeah. Okay. So so I did that, but I still think if you look at the proportionate amount of guilt there, I think seizing, intercepting, opening mail far exceeds an incorrect return address on it. And that's just my opinion. I'm not an attorney, but that's the issue. Is you have to ask yourself what was so scary about public records that they didn't want them to go out, other than they might have felt embarrassed by the content of the public records. But they're still public records. They're still available to read. Everyone should not believe me at all. Just read these and see if this warrants harassment by sending the public records out. There wasn't a word in this package written by me. I didn't accuse anybody of anything. Read some information, copied it, forwarded it.
even if you had, let's just go all the way out there and say you did accuse people based on the evidence that was in the package. Is it not in your right to do that? Or have we gone so far that you can't put pieces together and say, hey, I have questions about this, and it looks to me like this is what's going on. Is there no room to have that conversation anymore? Or is that hate speech now? Is this off the table?
Again, we'll want to put this package out, let people read it, make their own decision about that. I don't think I did anything wrong.
Okay. So you're going to give me a link to the digital file.
Yeah.
We'll post that in the notes.
Yeah.
So people can check that out, go down the rabbit hole.
Sure.
Maybe you'll find some sleuths out there that want to go dig up some more public records.
Well, I've got about 7,000 public records that I've got copies of.
Wow.
So I've got lots more to share.
Okay.
Okay. It won't ever come out anonymously again.
Good for you.
Okay.
I'm glad you learned
I've
your
got
lesson.
at least 7,000 public records, and I'm amassing more on a regular basis. So I think I have the right to possess these public records. I think everybody in the public has the right to possess these records. I think everybody has the right to read public records. And if somebody elected officials should understand that when there's public records available, they're being watched. I mean, it's no different than everybody needs to understand there's cameras everywhere now.
Yeah.
Okay? There's cameras everywhere. When you go in and you vandalize a place, you steal something, you do something inappropriate, you break a window, you vandalize something, everybody needs to understand there's security cameras just about everywhere when you're a porch pirate and you steal something. And public officials need to understand there's public records. And that's one of the reasons they continually try and block access to this. Now, and I say this in public groups and meetings. I had the county clerk get after me that she doesn't do that. And I understand she doesn't prevent people from getting public records. But when people go around her and they file a request for public information, we've got county employees whose job it is to prevent that information going out. I mean, when you see these requests that go in writing for information, and people at the county's job it is to play cat and mouse with you and not share that information. If they're public information officers, they should just give that information out. But when they get a request for this, they run to the commissioners, and the commissioners say, well, I don't know if I want the people to see how we voted on that, or I don't know if we should share with the people how we spent their money.
Are they incentivized for that? Is it just a pat on the head, good boy, thank you for bringing this to my attention?
Again, when you get a chance to interview these people, if they're nervy enough to sit down and chat with you for 2 or 3 hours, ask them that question. I'd like to know.
It's so weird. I know, because you've told me there are some really, really solid people that work in the county and in government. And I have to imagine, if I put myself in their shoes, I go, okay, I've taken this job, the key fit the lock, my family worked for the county or whatever. It seems right to me. I go work in the county, and then I'm in there, and I have coworkers that I know are not working in the best interest of the public, or they're going and they're trying to do sneaky things like this. As a public servant, as an employee of the county, I'd be really pissed off about that, to have to witness that on the regular. I'd be really upset. And I have to think that some of those people are just itching to be whistleblowers and to help clean up these departments.
I think that they are. And again, if you talk to Jeannie Herman, she will tell you that there's people that are being pressured out of their jobs at the county who've worked there their whole lives and pressured to leave, and friends of other elected officials are trying to get appointed to some of these choice department head jobs. So, I mean, again, that's the stuff that you hear from from other folks, and you should question them about how that's taking place. But I have a feeling this is almost like the Me Too movement, in that once whistleblowers start blowing whistles, all kinds of people are going to start blowing whistles, because there's a reputation at the county that people get cursed at, and people get bullied, and people get browbeat, and people get just bullied around there. Hopefully there's a point in time, and a lot of these people need these jobs. These are jobs that they need, and they need to be kept there, and they need to make their retirement. They need to have this job. And so sometimes people just go to work and put up with it. But if the folks felt that they could speak freely, it might be a whole different kind of a feeling there. And maybe somebody will decide it's time, they've had enough. I think we talked to Jeannie Herman, and I think she's a very honest person.
I would love to talk to Jeannie Herman.
And it's almost it almost disenfranchises 20% of the county when the bullies there at the rest of the folks on the dais continue to ignore her. But they think that they don't like her, so if they ignore her, but what they're really doing is ignoring all of her constituents. I mean, when we had the floods up in Lemon Valley, that was in Jeannie's district. The other county commissioners, some of them were probably even happy about it. I mean, they were just so disrespectful. These poor people got their houses flooded. Their wells were contaminated. Their septic systems were ruined. Their houses were ruined. And the county commissioners were mad at them.
Right.
Treated with total disrespect instead of trying to help them. Thank goodness Jeannie Herman was able to help those folks.
She's had a really hard time, it sounds like, in the county commission. I heard she said that they wouldn't let her, I think it was, she couldn't put things on the docket or on the agenda, and the only way she could be heard at the meeting was if she got off of her seat there, went down to the public podium, and did her 3 minutes at the public podium.
Again, you'll need to talk to her about that, but I heard the same statement. And
that's crazy to me.
And they just try and take her voice away, and when they try and take her voice away, again, I'm circling back to whose voice are they really taking away? They're taking away 20% of there's 5 districts in the county, so approximately 20% of the citizens in the county are in Jeannie's jurisdiction, and when they take away her voice, they're really taking away the citizens' voice. The citizens should, or her citizens that live and work in her district should be outraged about this. They should be down at these county commission meetings asking how come Jeannie and her constituents are being disenfranchised by somebody who doesn't like her. And it's a personality issue up there. It just isn't right.
No, it's not right. It's not right. Well, good luck on your race, and thanks for doing this with me.
Sure.
That took a lot. There was one thing you did remind me of something that Tom Heck. I had a conversation with Tom Heck, and he pointed out something that I thought was very telling. He said he'd been in the military, and he'd also been working in different state, county government stuff. And he said the biggest difference in the military, they'd say how long they'd been in the military, and in county government, it was how many years until retirement. And I thought, that's really telling.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that for a lot of these people who are probably horribly miserable at their state or county job because of all of the stuff that they see going on around them, that they're just itching to get out of there. And if not for that cool retirement that's coming up a few years out, they'd have left a long time ago. Yeah. I hope more of those people turn into whistleblowers on their way out the door, at least.
That was a good observation that Tom Heck made. Yeah. I hadn't thought of it that way, but I'm going to use that in the future.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, thank you.
Sure. Thanks.